Miami's skyline glitters under tropical sunsets, but behind the high-rises, a storm is brewing. UBS just named Miami the most overvalued real estate bubble on the planet, according to the New York Post. Meanwhile, in places like Port St. Lucie and North Port, new homes are getting slashed by tens of thousands within months of being built. What's going on across Florida is not a gentle cooling. It could be a deep crack forming under the foundation of the Sunshine State's housing boom. Stick around, because we're counting down 10 Florida cities that are dangerously exposed to a home price crash in 2025. These aren't guesses, they're flashing warning lights backed by data. You'll see how overbuilding, insurance meltdown, investor panic, and climate risk combine to turn Florida's real estate dreams into risky bets. By the end, you'll know which cities to watch and which to walk away from. 10. The stretch of Florida's east coast encompassing Cape Canaveral, Titusville, and Cocoa Beach has quietly emerged as one of the most vulnerable housing markets in 2025. At first glance, these seaside towns might seem like stable, tourist-friendly locations, but the numbers tell a very different story. Since 2022, housing inventory in this region has jumped by nearly 65%, with over 2,400 active listings now competing for fewer buyers, compared to just 1,450 homes on the market 3 years ago. Prices are feeling the pressure. Median home values that peaked around $425,000 in 2023 are now averaging closer to $380,000, a decline of roughly 10% in just 2 years. For newer waterfront properties, some developments are seeing discounts as steep as $50,000 to $70,000 within months of being built, signaling that even the most desirable locations are not immune. Insurance is a critical factor driving this downturn. Annual premiums for flood-prone properties have soared by 60% to 80% since 2023. With some waterfront homes now costing between $8,000 and $12,000 a year to insure. The risk isn't hypothetical. Cape Canaveral and Cocoa Beach lie directly in hurricane corridors, and the region has seen 3 tropical storms or hurricanes making landfall nearby in the past 2 years alone, exacerbating insurer pullouts and driving up premiums. Utilities and infrastructure are under stress too. New housing developments often face water and sewage hookup fees exceeding $20,000 per household, a hidden cost that has deterred prospective buyers. Local economic factors compound the problem. Median household income in Titusville is roughly $58,000, which means that even before factoring in higher insurance and utility costs, many residents cannot comfortably afford the median-priced homes. Vacancy rates are rising, and investor activity, once a major driver of growth, has slowed sharply. Rental occupancy in the area has dropped nearly 15% since 2023, making investment properties less attractive and prompting some sellers to cut prices aggressively just to exit the market. All these elements, the overbuilding, rising insurance and utility costs, lagging income, and investor retreat, combine to make the Cape Canaveral-Titusville-Cocoa Beach corridor a high-risk housing market in 2025. While these towns still boast prime beach access and a desirable lifestyle, the data shows that buyers and investors are increasingly cautious, and price corrections here may deepen before the market stabilizes. Number 9. Osceola County, including Kissimmee and the greater Orlando fringe, has quietly become one of the riskiest housing markets in Florida for 2025. During the pandemic boom, the area saw unprecedented growth as buyers sought more affordable alternatives to Orlando's city core and coastal metros. From 2020 to 2023, median home prices in Osceola County surged by nearly 55%, climbing from approximately $260,000 to around $403,000. Yet this rapid appreciation vastly outpaced local income growth, leaving the median household earning just $58,000 struggling to afford typical mortgage payments. The imbalance between home prices and wages has created a fragile market foundation, leaving Osceola particularly vulnerable to shocks. Now, in 2025, the signs of strain are clear. Housing inventory has ballooned to over 3, 500 active listings, nearly double the 1-800 homes available in 2023. Many of these homes are lingering on the market for 65 days or more, compared to just 28 days during the peak boom years. This extended time on the market reflects both a cooling of buyer demand and the increasing caution of investors who previously fueled the market with speculative purchases. Indeed, nearly 27% of homes listed in 2025 are investor-owned, and a significant portion of these investors are now cutting prices by 10 to 15% just to move inventory, resulting in widespread downward pressure on values. Mortgage rates climbing above 6.8% have also priced out many first-time buyers, turning what was once a feeder market for Orlando commuters into a region struggling to convert listings into sales. Compounding the problem, Osceola's economy relies heavily on tourism, hospitality, and service sectors tied to Orlando, and any dip in visitation or employment growth directly impacts the local housing market. With these combined factors, soaring past home price growth, inflated investor activity, record high inventory, and affordability strains, Osceola County has emerged as a cautionary tale. It is now one of the Florida markets most likely to experience sharp home price corrections in 2025, demonstrating that even areas just outside major urban centers are not immune to the state's unfolding housing challenges. 8. Port St. Lucie made the list in earlier crash-oriented videos, and it's still relevant. Rapid growth outpaced infrastructure, schools, roads, and utilities. New developments kept coming, even as buyer traffic cooled. During the boom, many buyers were chasing affordability from farther north. But now those buyers are hesitant. Some subdivisions built with margin are cutting prices 10 to 15% just to move inventory. Port St. Lucie has quietly emerged as one of Florida's most vulnerable housing markets in 2025, and the numbers tell a stark story. Over the past 2 years, housing inventory in the city has surged dramatically, rising by approximately 35% year over year. This means that while there were just under 2,000 active listings in 2023, the market now faces more than 2,700 homes competing for buyers. Such a rapid increase in supply has created intense competition among sellers, leading to widespread price reductions. Homes that were listed for around $430,000 in 2023 are now frequently being discounted to $360,000 or even lower, representing losses of over $70,000 within a relatively short period. This situation is compounded by the fact that the median household income in Port St. Lucie hovers around $62,000, creating an affordability gap that makes it difficult for many local buyers to keep up with rising home prices during the boom years. On top of that, insurance costs have soared, with waterfront and flood-prone properties now carrying premiums of $6, $500 or more annually, adding tens of thousands in costs over a typical mortgage term. The city's rapid growth has also strained infrastructure. Schools are overcrowded, traffic congestion is worsening, and water utility systems are under increasing pressure. All these factors combined, ballooning supply, falling prices, high insurance costs, and stressed infrastructure, place Port St. Lucie squarely on the list of Florida cities most at risk of a serious housing correction in 2025. Number 7. Tampa used to embody consistent growth, but in 2025, it's facing its own reckoning. Zillow's 2025 ranking dropped Tampa Bay 19 spots in its hottest markets list. Inventory exploded, rising 80% from early 2023 levels, according to Axios. Builders flooded the area with new condos in suburban neighborhoods, right as mortgage rates climbed above 6.8%. That squeezed many buyers out. Investors are cutting losses, and the region's storm risk is ever present. Tampa, by many estimates, sits among the U.S.'s most flood-vulnerable metro areas. The convergence of oversupply, rising costs, storm risk, and falling buyer demand makes Tampa a high-stakes chess match. But wait, what about smaller, less obvious cities facing similar pressure? Tampa, once the crown jewel of Florida's housing boom, has now become one of the most striking examples of a market turning south. Just 2 years ago, Tampa ranked as one of Zillow's hottest housing markets in America. But in 2025, the city has plummeted 19 spots down the list, reflecting a massive shift in buyer demand. Inventory tells the story even more clearly. Between early 2023 and late 2024, the number of homes on the market surged by nearly 80%, flooding buyers with options they simply don't want at current prices. Mortgage rates climbing above 6.8% have squeezed many first-time buyers out, forcing sellers to slash prices just to stay competitive. Homes that once flew off the market in under 2 weeks are now sitting for an average of 52 days before a deal closes. At the same time, Tampa Bay faces one of the highest storm risk profiles in the nation, with flood insurance premiums doubling or even tripling for many homeowners. This combination of oversupply, rising ownership costs, and environmental risk has turned Tampa from a growth engine into a warning sign, showing how quickly confidence can unravel when the fundamentals no longer add up. 6. Northport has been one of Florida's fastest-growing cities in recent years, but that rapid expansion has now become its biggest weakness. Between 2019 and 2023, home values in Northport rose by more than 80%, with the median home price climbing from roughly $230,000 to over $415,000. For a city with a median household income under $70,000, that kind of acceleration created a huge affordability gap. The frenzy was fueled by out-of-state buyers and investors looking for cheaper alternatives to Sarasota or Fort Myers, but the wave of new arrivals has slowed in 2025. According to Zillow and Redfin, inventory in Northport has doubled compared to 2022, with many listings sitting unsold for over 90 days. Even worse, sellers are slashing prices. Reductions of $20,000 to $50,000 are becoming common just to attract offers. NTHE oversupply is being compounded by aggressive building during the boom years. Developers poured in subdivisions at record pace, expecting demand to hold, but new construction is now colliding with weak resale activity. On top of that, insurance premiums in Sarasota County, where Northport sits, have risen by more than 30% year over year, pricing out many would-be buyers. The combination of unaffordable homes, rising ownership costs, and oversupply means Northport is extremely vulnerable. If migration into Florida slows any further, Northport could see price declines in the 15 to 20% range, putting it among the hardest-hit cities in the state. Number 5. West Palm Beach is one of those markets that looks glamorous on the surface, but when you dig into the numbers, it's a house built on sand. Between 2020 and 2023, median home prices in Palm Beach County shot up by more than 55%, climbing from the low $350,000s to well over $540,000. That level of growth far outpaced wage gains in the region, where the median household income sits around $70,000 a year. The math just doesn't work. Affordability is stretched to the breaking point, with many buyers needing to spend over 40% of their income on housing costs. On top of that, the cost of actually keeping a home in West Palm has skyrocketed. Average homeowners' insurance premiums in Florida now top $6,000 a year, and in Palm Beach specifically, it's not unusual for flood-prone or coastal homes to face premiums of $10,000 to $12,000 annually. Some insurers have even pulled out of the market entirely, leaving homeowners scrambling. Add rising property taxes, HOA fees, and special assessments for older condo buildings that need upgrades after the Surfside collapse, and the total cost of ownership here has spiraled out of control. The Cotality 2025 report places West Palm among the top Florida markets most at risk of a sharp decline, and CoreLogic earlier this year gave it a 70% chance of price drops in 2025. What's happening is simple. The luxury demand that once drove West Palm upward is cooling, locals can't keep up with inflated costs, and investors are quietly unloading properties before the market slides further. 4. St. Petersburg is often painted as Tampa Bay's quieter, artsier sibling, but the numbers tell a very different story about where this market is heading. In just the last 2 years, the city's housing inventory has more than doubled. jumping from under 800 active listings in 2023 to over 600 in mid-2025. Homes that once sold within a week are now sitting on the market for an average of 68 days, the longest stretch since the post-2008 crash. Sellers are slashing prices, with the median listing down nearly 6% year-over-year, while luxury condos along the waterfront have seen even steeper cuts, in some cases dropping $50,000 to $100,000 below their 2022 peaks. What's driving this? Insurance costs have skyrocketed, with flood zone premiums climbing into the $10,000 to $12,000 range annually for many homeowners, while HOA fees in older condo buildings have doubled in just 3 years due to mandated repairs and maintenance. Investors who once dominated St. Pete's vacation rental market are being squeezed out. Short-term rental profits have fallen by as much as 30% since 2022 as both tourism patterns and regulatory pressures tightened. In short, St. Petersburg is no longer the can't-lose market it was hyped up to be. Instead, it's becoming a prime example of how inflated valuations, runaway costs, and shifting demand collide to push even the most desirable coastal cities onto the crash watch list. Number 3. Lakeland and Winter Haven, the two major cities of Polk County, might not have the glamorous reputation of Miami or Tampa, but their housing markets are flashing some of the strongest warning signs in Florida. Over the past 3 years, Polk County was one of the fastest-growing regions in the state, with population growth hitting nearly 5% between 2020 and 2023, well above the national average. Builders rushed to meet this demand, issuing thousands of permits for new subdivisions and master-planned communities. In fact, Polk ranked in the top 5 counties in Florida for new single-family home permits in both 2022 and 2023. The problem is, demand has cooled far quicker than expected. According to CoreLogic, Winter Haven now has more than a 70% chance of price decline in 2025, one of the highest probabilities in the entire U.S. Meanwhile, Lakeland was flagged in the Cotality 2025 Housing Risk Report as a high-risk correction zone, with inventory up nearly 90% compared to just 2 years ago. Homes that were once selling in under 20 days are now sitting on the market for over 2 months, and price cuts are becoming the norm. Median listing prices in Polk County peaked at around $340,000 in mid-2022, but have already slid back toward $300,000, erasing much of the boom-era gains. With local household incomes averaging just $62,000 a year, affordability has collapsed, and many buyers simply can't keep up with higher mortgage rates and soaring property insurance costs. What makes this especially risky is Polk's location. It doesn't have the tourism-driven demand of Orlando or the international pull of Miami. If local job growth slows even slightly, the housing market here could tumble much faster than its coastal neighbors, making Lakeland and Winter Haven a bellwether for how bad things might get inland. Number 2. Cape Coral is a textbook example of what happens when speculative building collides with softening demand. Between 2020 and 2022, median home prices in Cape Coral skyrocketed nearly 65%, one of the steepest climbs in the nation. Homes that were selling for around $230,000 in 2019 suddenly pushed past $380,000 by late 2022, driven by out-of-state buyers, pandemic migration, and cheap credit. But by 2024, the cracks were clear. Prices started slipping, and by mid-2025, year-over-year values were already down 5 to 7%, while new construction continued to pour onto the market. According to Redfin data, the average Cape Coral home now sits unsold for more than 70 days, compared to less than 30 days during the pandemic boom. Inventory has swollen, with active listings nearly doubling in 2 years. Builders, who once sold out lots before pouring foundations, are now offering $20,000 to $40,000 discounts and throwing in incentives like free pools or closing costs just to move properties. Layer onto that Florida's insurance crisis, Cape Coral's location makes it one of the most hurricane-prone metros in the U.S., and annual premiums now average $6,000 to $8,000, pricing many middle-class families out entirely. Investors who once rushed to scoop up homes for Airbnb rentals are beginning to exit, spooked by oversupply and shrinking margins. With too many homes chasing too few qualified buyers, Cape Coral has gone from boomtown darling to one of the most fragile housing markets in Florida, one where even small economic tremors could turn into a full-blown collapse. Number 1. Miami isn't just Florida's most famous housing market. It's also the one flashing the loudest warning sirens right now. In September 2025, UBS released its Global Real Estate Bubble Index, and out of 25 world cities analyzed, Zurich, Tokyo, Toronto, Hong Kong, Miami ranked number 1 as the most overvalued housing market on the planet. That finding alone should make anyone pause. The numbers tell the story even more clearly. In early 2023, the median sale price of a Miami home hovered around $640,000. By mid-2025, that figure had slipped closer to $595,000. It doesn't sound dramatic at first glance, but that's nearly a 7% drop in less than 2 years in a city where prices were once assumed to only climb. At the same time, inventory has exploded. Where there were about 7,000 homes on the market in 2023, there are now over 15,000 active listings, more than double in just 2 years. Sellers are cutting prices and still struggling to move properties. Condos, long the bread and butter of Miami's skyline, are suffering even more. According to a 2024 report from the Miami Association of Realtors, condo sales volume dropped 30% year over year, while listings ballooned past 20,000 units. Beneath all of this is a hidden cost problem that no chart captures: insurance. After Hurricane Ian and a string of smaller storms, many insurers simply pulled out of Florida altogether, leaving condo owners with annual insurance bills of $12,000 to $15,000 on top of their HOA fees, property taxes, and mortgages. Add in the repair assessments that followed the Surfside collapse, and many owners have been hit with 5- or 6-figure surprise bills, forcing some to walk away entirely. Then there's the income problem. The average household income in Miami-Dade County sits at about $57,000 a year. At today's mortgage rates of nearly 7%, a family would need to earn over $150,000 annually to comfortably afford the median Miami home. That gap between what homes cost and what residents actually earn is one of the widest in the United States. What we're watching, then, isn't just a cooling market, it's a system stretched to its breaking point. Investors who once treated Miami condos as safe parking spots for global money are now exiting. Local buyers can't replace them at these inflated prices. And the result is a market trapped between oversupply, collapsing demand, and crushing ownership costs. The danger here is that Miami sets the tone for Florida as a whole. If the state's crown jewel can't hold, confidence in every other Florida market is bound to unravel.